Okay, you're good.
Thank you. We're at 7 p.m. I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Board of the Select Board. Officially now, the first meeting of the Select Board for August 31st, 2020. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Town of Chelmsford Board of Selectmen, or Select Board, will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information in the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the town's website at www.chelmsfordma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so by accessing the Chelmsford Telemedia website at www.chelmsfordtv.org. No in-person attendance or members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event we're unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Reminder note to everybody on the
Hey, Board of Selectmen. That means you select men. That's gay as fuck, faggot ass. Y'all some fags, man. You only select men? Y'all gay. No, man, y'all's a bunch of faggots. Huge.
all right.
Can't mute this. Suck my dick. I'm a hacker. You can't mute me.
Oh boy.
I hack you.
Sorry about that, guys.
Pete, did you get him?
Sorry about that, guys. I finally figured it out.
Pete, am I muted? No? Okay. Sorry about that. I apologize. I'm just making sure we get this clear here. All right. So just a reminder, everybody, any chat that goes on in the open chat becomes part of the public record, and any individual chat between, in a private setting, between two people in the meeting is also part of public record, so just be aware of that. All the chats are captured, and if someone puts in a records request, they will see the chats. All right, so with that, we will start with our public service announcements. And is Trish here to do the state primary election?
Mr. Chairman, I received a text from her a short while ago. She's not able to make it. They're still setting up at the McCarthy School. So she did ask me to, obviously the polling hours for tomorrow's primary election are from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And the voting takes place at the McCarthy School and at the Senior Center for the two precincts up in that area of town. But the one thing she wanted me to remind people especially is that if you have an absentee ballot or an early voting ballot, that needs to be returned not to the polling place, but to the town clerk's office or the mail drop box in front of the town offices.
Thank you, Paul. We have the Chelmsford Military Community Covenant Task Force.
Pat, are you muted?
Pat, can you talk? I don't.
We can't hear you.
We can't hear you. You want to try to figure it out? One of us can read the flyer. Virginia, you want to read that for her?
Sure. The Chelmsford Military Community Covenant Task Force invites the community to the 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony to honor those who perished that day and first responders who answered the call to serve. The The ceremony will be on Saturday, September 12th at 9 a.m. at the Chelmsford 9/11 Memorial at 50 Billrica Road. We will never forget.
Thank you, Virginia. Pat, you want to do a voice check? No? The only thing I can suggest, Pat, is on the bottom right of your computer screen, just make sure your speaker buttons and microphone buttons are turned on. It says you're unmuted. Any chance you could call in using your phone?
Pat, this is Pete. You could also just leave the meeting and try to rejoin and or restart your computer and do the same thing.
Pat, do you want us, should we wait for Pat for open session?
I can read the diversity one first.
Yep. Please go ahead.
Sure. So this is for the Diversity, Racial Equity, and Inclusion Committee application. The Select Board invites all interested parties to apply for a position on the new Diversity, Racial Equity, and Inclusion Committee. In the remarks section of the application, please include information that describes your personal background, which segments of the community you represent, and any other information you would like the board to know regarding your perspective. The application can be found on the town's website at chelmsfordmass.gov, chelmsfordma.gov, and additional pages may be included if needed. Please submit all applications by Wednesday, September 9th to the town manager's office or by email at kbruce@chelmsfordma.gov.
Okay, thank you. So then Pat back.
We should probably give her a minute.
Yeah, she's in the waiting room right now. She's being let in. Any luck, Pat?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks.
We did the last public service announcement without you, which was the Diversity and Racial Equity Inclusion Committee applications. I don't know if you have any input into that, anything to add, but if not, we will move to open session.
If I could just make a brief addition on the 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony. We will be obviously following COVID protocols. We'll require face masks and be practicing social distancing for that. So, but definitely welcome anybody to attend. And I believe Telemedia is going to be recording it so that it can be broadcast on Chelmsford Telemedia. Thanks.
Thank you, Pat. All right, I'm going to now open up open session. I have a couple people already queued up, some with private message, some with public. Just going to ask everybody as we go through this, I'm going to do the timer to 3 minutes. And if it's a repetitive message, we're going to ask you to move along. We're going to try to keep the meeting moving tonight. So if you're going to repeat something someone else said, repeat something you've previously said, again, if we just keep the messages short and sweet and to the point, that'd be great. So the first up in my queue, I actually have Frank Good asking me if he can speak. So if we can turn on his. Frank, do you want your camera on?
Yes, I would like my camera on, please. Can you hear me?
Yep. And you got to start your own video though.
There we go. Can you hear me and see me all right?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the Select Board, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. Good evening. My name is Frank Good and my address is 4 Longspur Road. At the last meeting, a resident and town employee chose to invoke my name negatively and made inaccurate statements about me in regard to the current situation surrounding the town manager. It was alleged that I have a personal vendetta against Mr. Cohen. I ask you, and is representing all the members of the Sergeants Union by utilizing all legal avenues afforded by the state and the courts to ensure accountability for those who act unethically and violate Massachusetts general law considered a vendetta? It was quite obvious that during the last meeting, supporters of the town manager made a huge miscalculation. They never expected this board to defend themselves. Once again, these supporters did not do Mr. Cohen any favors. They are demanding reasons for the board's initial vote of 4-1 not to renew his contract, and ultimately a second vote of 3-2 to renew his contract for only 1 year. This very small vocal group is loudly complaining that the board is not given sufficient information surrounding this board's decisions about Mr. Cohen. They feel like they're in the dark. Make no mistake about it. Those people are in the dark for only one reason. Mr. Cohen requested and persuaded this board to keep the public in the dark. Although the executive session minutes are quite clear, they choose to ignore these minutes and lay blame on everyone else. This board's decision not to discuss their actions and reasons surrounding Mr. Cohen publicly appears to have been done as a courtesy to him. After what this board has been subjected to since January from Mr. Cohen and this small group of supporters, do you still believe he is deserving of that courtesy? It's time to bring us all out of the dark officially. Please have the open discussion surrounding this town manager. I also feel compelled to correct the record for the public who watched the last meeting. Several misleading statements were made by Mr. Cohen during that meeting in regards to the investigation. What was most telling was how upset he became at the mere mention of the report. He stated that the report was not an investigation on him. Yes, that's precisely what it is. A Secretary of State appeal decision refers to it as exactly that. That report was a direct result of a complaint I lodged against him for violating the town's code of ethics for his actions surrounding our case and the pending DLR complaints against him. He also stated, what you have implied is that the board has done a secret investigation that can't be released. To be clear, there is no secret to the investigation or the existence of the report. Newspaper articles have been written about it. The only secret is the content of the report. Why is this a secret? Because Mr. Cohen has refused to release it and has continued to fight its release as a public record.
30 seconds, Frank.
This is an investigation or report that the taxpayers of this town spent $9,000 for. Upon appeal with the Secretary of State, town legal counsel argued in the appeal that the report's release would be embarrassing to the town manager. Long before that, Mr. Cohen stated in a Lowell Sun article that he was looking forward to the investigation as it would prove.
Frank, your time's almost up.
Then why to fight this report's release? Mr. Cohen also falsely accused Mr. Dixon that he took it upon himself to get a written report. February executive session minutes clear. I'll be done in 10 seconds. February executive session minutes clearly show that the board voted 4-0 to have Investigator Harrington provide a written report. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
All right, next up we have Regina Jackson, if we can unmute her microphone.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Hi, Regina. Hi, John. Yep.
Hi. I'll make this quick. First of all, Frank, that was me who spoke out at the last meeting, and that is our personal opinion that based on your behavior from previous Board of Selectmen meetings and my personal conversations with you, I truly believe you have a personal vendetta against Town Manager Paul Cohen. I mean, I really believe that. And also, everything you spoke of has to do with an unsettled union contract. At some point, it's going to be settled. So I'm sorry if you didn't like what I said, but I totally stand behind it. You have let your personal negative feelings about Paul Cohen shade everything. But I'll make this very quick. The reason why we are speaking out tonight is that just to let everybody know that the last item on the agenda tonight is the executive session to conduct strategy sessions and preparations for negotiations with non-union personnel, which is the town manager contract. We certainly hope that your discussion is going to be about extending this town manager's contract, or at the very minimum to on the select boards that you tell us your intent to honor the town manager Paul Cohen's contract through June of 2021, which you have already have told the community and the residents. And giving the finance committee's unanimous statement and input that in the best interest of Chelmsford going forward, would be to retain Town Manager Paul Cohen, that we, as both residents and taxpayers, would expect you will act in the best interest of the total town, of the town of Chelmsford.
1 minute left, Regina.
Almost done, the town of Chelmsford, and heed the Finance Committee's advice and publicly support Town Manager Paul Cohen going forward. And we certainly hope that you will consider that and that you do take into account the breadth of everybody in different organizations and committees in Chelmsford, and when they voice their support for Town Manager Paul Cohen, because he's doing an excellent job. And I just want to reiterate with Frank Good, I'm sorry he's so angry, but it's a union contract thing. It's really should not be been put on such a personal, mean, in my opinion, level. Thank you for
15
listening.
seconds.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Regina. All right. Jerry Hall asked if he could speak or should he wait until item 5, which is the air quality testing. I'm going to probably, if everybody's okay with it, let him speak at that point, so we can get through the open session. Next up, Jim Clancy would like to read a letter. Can we unmute Jim? Hi, Jim.
Good evening. Good evening, members of the Select Board. I would like to read into the record a letter we sent to the board and a copy of the town clerk on this afternoon as a result of our meeting of this past Thursday. I'm coming to you as the chair of the Finance Committee. To the members of the Select Board, on Thursday, August 27th, 2020, the Finance Committee held a virtual meeting at 7:30 p.m., the meeting minutes of which will be voted on and available at a later date, and the broadcast of which has been recorded and is available for viewing through Chelmsford Telemedia. Included on the agenda was an item entitled, quote, discuss potential financial impacts, related considerations and concerns pertaining to the Board of Selectmen's actions with regard to the town manager and the board's stated desire to form a town manager search committee, end quote. At said meeting, Finance Committee received and accepted public comment in support of Mr. Paul Cohen in his position as town manager. The Finance Committee also moved and unanimously adopted a resolution stating that, quote, based upon his financial expertise and past performance, the Finance Committee provides their vote of support of Paul Cohen remaining as town manager and encourages the Select Board to extend his contract beyond its current terminus, end quote. In further support of this vote, as will be provided in meeting minutes and is currently available for review in the recording of our meeting, the Finance Committee stated its concerns with the town manager's position and any change at this time, including, but not limited to, the town maintaining its bond rating, which has been regularly attributed to the strong financial management, the current financial uncertainty the town is facing related to the ongoing COVID pandemic, the recent departure of our assistant town manager, and the potential future loss of current employees and volunteers in the community with the collective loss of their institutional knowledge, and concerns related to the town manager's contract should the Select Board elect to proceed with the formation of a search committee. The Finance Committee strongly urges the Select Board not to proceed with the formation of a town manager search committee at this time for the financial reasons elucidated above and in our meeting of August 27th, 2020. The members of the Finance Committee make ourselves available to the board for any further discussion and appreciate the opportunity to provide our thoughts and our recommendations in our advisory capacity on this topic of great import to the budgetary well-being of our town. Respectfully yours, the Finance Committee. Jim Clancy, Chair, Anita Tonini, Vice Chair, Kathy Duffett, Amina Langford, Eric Chambers, David Goslin, and Vicky Parks. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. With that, we don't have everybody else asking to speak. One more second if anybody wishes to say anything, but I don't see anybody. So with that, let's close public session. And with that, we'll move to committee vacancies.
The committee vacancies as of today, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee has 2 openings. The Board of Appeals has 1 opening. The CCA Advisory Committee has 3 openings. Center Village Master Plan Implementation Committee, 2 openings. The Commission on Disabilities, 1 opening. The Community Action Program Committee has 1 opening. The Community Preservation Fund Committee, 1 term open. The Council on Aging has 5 associate member positions open. The Energy Conservation Committee has 3 positions open. The Historic District Commission, 1 position. The Holiday Decorating Committee, 1 position. The Middlesex Canal Commission, 2 positions. The Parade Committee welcomes all applicants for 1-year terms. The Permanent Building Committee has 1 opening. The Personnel Board has 1 opening. The Public Celebrations Committee has 5 openings. The Recycling Committee has 2 openings. The Robert Field Advisory Committee, 1 opening. The Tree Committee, 3 openings. And the Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee, 2 openings. If you're interested in serving on a town board or committee, please complete an application available on the town website. And for more information, you can contact the town manager's office at tmoffice@chelmsfordma.gov or 978-250-5202.
Thank you, Virginia.
Mhm.
All right, item 5. We're going to hear from Samuel Desmonds on the GZA Geo-Environmental Air Quality Test Study Strategy. Can we unmute him and turn on his video if he wants us to?
Yeah, thank you. And I would like to, I guess, share my screen so we can work through the slides together, unless that would present an issue.
Pete, will you be able to share a screen with him? I just tried and I can't do it.
You should be able to share it now.
Pete, someone in the chat also wants to join Sam. If you could turn on, allow him to unmute.
Yeah, thank you. And that was my colleague I mentioned earlier, Ken Boyven. So my name is Sam Desmonds, as Chairman mentioned. I am a professional engineer and certified hazardous materials manager with GZA Geo-Environmental out of Bedford, New Hampshire. I'm going to be acting as the project manager for the air quality monitoring, and Ken Boyven, who's joining me today,
Now, see, if I was
is going to be acting as the principal in charge. Ken, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Sam. I hope everyone can.
What
Looks
do you-
like I'm unmuted.
Yeah.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Select Board for
I hope not.
having us come in tonight and just share our proposed approach to perform the air quality monitoring that was requested in your July 29th, 2020 solicitation of quotes for air quality studies. As Sam mentioned, we're both with GZA, Geo-Environmental of Norwood, and also both Sam and I work out of our Bedford, New Hampshire office, but our main corporate offices are in Norwood. So as Sam mentioned, he'll be our project manager for the project. I'll be directing the project as what we call our principal in charge. I've been with GZA performing air quality studies and other related environmental work for the past 20 years. I'm a certified hazardous materials manager and have performed similar work with Sam in the neighboring community of Westford. But I'll let Sam run through our slides and just summarize our proposed approach, and then we're happy to answer any questions either as we go or at the end of our discussion.
Great, thank you. Before I start, can everybody see the first slide?
Cool, Bob.
We can.
Great, thank you. So just to familiarize everybody with the solicitation of quotes, Ken mentioned it was to conduct air quality monitoring within a 1-mile radius of the 2 designated areas, and those are the 2 asphalt plants. One, the Newport facility that's actually in Westford, and then the second is the aggregate industries facility. We will be conducting 2 sets of studies, one during peak season and one when the facilities have been shut down. And we will be focusing on concentrations of volatile organic compounds, which I'll be stating as VOCs going forward, particulate matter, lead, and asphalt fume. So after we received the solicitation, GZA developed a sampling protocol that is very similar to the approach we're taking in the Westford study. And they are conducting a similar study that we are wrapping up actually this week. So we're going to be collecting 2 air samples at each of the proposed locations. We selected 7 of them. I'll go into more detail on that on the next slides. But we'll be collecting 2 samples for VOC, lead, and asphalt fume at each of the sites or at each of the locations per day. And then we will be also conducting continuous monitoring of VOCs and particulate matter while we're collecting those samples at each location. I was specifically asked to make sure we considered how the weather may affect the different analytes that we'll be sampling for. The VOC concentrations will be negatively correlated with temperature. So as temperature increases, VOC concentrations tend to show a decrease, and then they'll correspond positively with humidity. And that's based on one study that we reviewed during the proposal stage. The wind will obviously, I think, affect the concentrations of all analytes. So we will be focused on gathering that data both while we're in the field, and then we'll also download wind data and really all weather data from local weather stations as they are available near the site. So whatever's closest to the sites. And we will be working closely with the town to monitor the weather forecasts and identify periods that are forecasted to be representative of this time of the year in New England. Really what that means is I think we'll avoid any sorts of large storms or change in fronts that may bring a lot of wind or a lot of rain to the sites. And we'll, again, try to select a period that's representative. So as we were developing this proposal, we did review each site from an aerial mapping standpoint, and we identified that there are 3 kind of distinct neighborhoods around the Newport site. And so we just identified locations that would be closest to the Newport site for each of those locations. And you can see we have representative sample points on the picture shown. The aggregate facility was a little bit more difficult because it's a little bit more congested. So we instead chose locations in each cardinal direction that again tried to be closest to the site and cut off, I guess, between the site and any residencies near the site. So we're trying to be between the residencies and the site. And again, you can see them depicted on the map. And so I guess that's a very high level overview of what our plan is and how we will be conducting the study. We would be happy to answer any questions, either Ken or I, if there are any.
So what, given other plants that you've tested the air quality around, what would the standard be for recommending that changes be made?
Ken, do you have any insight to?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. In general, I think we would, I think the intent of the approach is to report deviations from what we would consider maybe typical air quality, typical ambient air concentrations. If there was something that diverged from that, we would have to look at that on a case-by-case basis. It would be difficult to sort of perform this type of monitoring and then turn and say, well, this must mean a certain specific thing is happening at the plant. But what it would do is provide, information to then, ask pertinent questions of the facility or of state regulators, to prompt those discussions and maybe consider further evaluations or, have the facility provide some data that would sort of help inform decisions that you could make. I guess if there were something significant, like a gross deviation from typical air quality or something that exceeded published standards, like the National Ambient Air Quality Standards, for instance, or other published limits that the state of Massachusetts may have, then again, I think you would want to consult with the respective regulators who enforce those regulations and refer the data to them, and talk through and discuss what next steps would be appropriate.
I had a couple of questions. This is Virginia Timmons. It appears, well, my question is, when you selected the locations for the studies, we've had a lot of complaints recently from residents of Scotty Hollow at certain places in their campus at certain times of day. And it looks like one of your locations is either at Scotty Hollow or near it. But my question is, will you be taking into account the location where they are having issues and the times of day when you do your testing? And I have a similar question near the aggregate facilities. Tom Fall gave me permission to use his name. He's one of our town meeting reps who spoke at our town meeting when this article came up and said that he has had issues with the aggregate plant. And specifically what he shared with me is that when he gets the burning sensations and things like that in his lungs and feels nauseous, it typically is in the early morning hours, 1 to 2 a.m. on weekends, 1 to 2 times a month. So my question in short is, to what extent will you consider some of the specific complaints in the locations and times of day that you test?
So
or does it matter?
Well, I think what matters is what's going on at the facility and the wind directions. I think those are two sort of primary factors that would sort of differentiate between the concentrations in air at different locations. So if the plant's really active and their emissions are higher and the wind is blowing, from the plant to the observer, that's kind of the optimal condition, or to the test site. It's nearly impossible when you're air monitoring to be in exactly the right place at exactly the right time, which is why we try to monitor for longer periods of time and monitor at multiple locations, to try to manage some of that variability. But it's just the nature of air and meteorology that
Mm-hmm.
just doesn't stay constant. So as far as the Scotty Hollow locations, we weren't advised of where exactly complaints or issues were coming from. We picked our locations to try to bias our sampling, towards where residences exist and where the residences are in the closest proximity to the site. We did not consider, monitoring overnight. Our monitoring was proposed to be done during, daylight working hours, but we're open to, any discussion with the town as far as times and locations. If that's something that you'd like to discuss further, to refine the approach that we proposed.
Yeah, and
Ken, can you go back to the?
I'm not an expert in this area, but I guess the only follow-up question I would have to that is, Paul and Ken and Sam, if the town were able to give you like logs of the complaints and the locations of the complaints, does that help you better inform your testing approach? Or is it data that would be helpful to inform the testing approach?
Yeah, I think it would be helpful. I think that would be something to base some future discussions around. Not having seen those and understanding those times, it's difficult for me to know one way or another, but that's something we would be happy to take a look at.
And I'm sorry, Paul, with the screen share, I can't see you. Is that something we can provide to them?
Yeah, we'll send them the complaints tomorrow.
Okay. I had one other question, which is, and I think this had come up when the RFP was being developed. You don't announce the times or the days that you're doing the testing. Is that correct? So that we don't want to bias the plant operations by having them know when you're coming in to do testing.
No, we wouldn't make any announcement at all.
Okay.
We would just coordinate those time periods with the town and, perform the sampling.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had. And I didn't want to forget that Mr. Hall wanted to speak.
Yeah, so before he speaks, just make sure, anybody else have any, on the board have any questions for Ken or Sam? And if not, then we'll open it up to Jerry.
Oh, I just have one question. I know we've received several complaints recently, especially as Virginia said, from Scotty Hollow, particularly having to do with odor. How, if at all, is odor going to be correlated to these compounds that you're testing, or can it? Because that's a quality of life issue too.
And I'm glad you brought that question up, because I think that's probably one of the most important things to discuss tonight. The level at which individuals, detect an odor varies, and people's sensitivity to odors vary. But asphalt contains compounds that are very easily detected as odor at levels far lower than they would ever be expected to impact someone's health, a direct sort of cause and effect relationship. But that's not to say that odors don't, otherwise create quality of life issues. Those compounds are smelled at such low levels, in the 7.5 to 84 part per billion range. Those are going to be concentrations that are tough to detect. But I do think our VOC sampling does have the ability to detect at the part per billion level, but I can go back and compare those. We can evaluate the detection limits for those particular compounds. It's not something we did in preparation for the meeting, but I will note that that you can smell some of the constituents in asphalt long before they're known to be harmful to someone.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's, I don't see any notes. So we'll turn on Jerry's microphone, please.
Hello.
Yes, Jerry, we can hear you.
Thank you. Gentlemen, did anyone give you the history of why we wanted this done with the story of rezoning and the Board of Health saying the area was hazardous to seniors' health?
No, we didn't have that background information.
Okay. I think it might be helpful for you to look at the town meeting where we sponsored the citizens petition for this. Give you a little of the history. The area was proposed to be rezoned with the limited commercial development on the north side of Route 40 to support senior housing. The Board of Health came out with the statement that senior housing up there would be bad, it's dangerous and unhealthy. When we went to the Board of Health and asked how dangerous, at what distances, they had no data. Folks down on the other end of town also came to Board of Health and asked, well, what about our plant? So if you look at that town meeting thing, I think you'll see we want to know more danger than smells type thing. Smells is more a nuisance. We can deal with that later. I'm delighted that you talk about the weather. I hope we'll talk about the wind blowing towards Scotty Hollow and the Harrington School Complex and the high school complex. As far as working with the town for weather conditions, I wish we could keep the exact times and whatever, not only confidential from the plant operators, but also from any of the town people and Board of Selectmen. And I say that because there's been so much abuse lately, unfounded abuse to the Board of Selectmen, to Paul, to Evan, to whoever, from the internet trolls and the conspiracy people, that I'd like to insulate you guys from that. I mean, why feed them any more raw meat? So let's keep that distraction, nip it in the bud, keep it within the vendor. We trust you to do your work. You're the professionals. And I ask you to do it as if you lived in my neighborhood. And what would you like to know about? Is it dangerous? Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Anybody else have any other questions for Sam or Ken? I'll just say thank you, gentlemen, for joining us tonight. I look forward to your reports and coming back and telling us what's going on with the air quality around those two plants. So thank you again. Really appreciate it.
All right. You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a great night.
Yep.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye now.
All right. So with that, we will move on to item 6 on the agenda, our public hearings. We have a continuation for the transfer of the all alcohol beverages package store license from Vinyl Square Holdings, Vinyl Square Craft Beer House and Premium Liquors to Bischoff Nuan, DBA Chelmsford Wine and Spirits at 11 Vinyl Square. And
good evening,
here.
Select Board, David
Yep.
Keel and V. Nguyen here to answer any additional questions that either you or the public may have.
Does anybody on the board have questions for the applicant?
Yeah, actually, I did.
Nope. Go ahead, Emily.
So at the last meeting, he referenced wanting to take over the derelict building next to Princeton Station eventually for expansion.
It's being looked at. That is correct. We have a tentative agreement. We believe that that would be a beautiful site. It's about a 1/10 of a mile from where the existing store is now. It's being looked at closely at this point.
And so would your plan then be to leave the existing location for a different business and move everything down to that other location? And how big a store are you envisioning there if everything goes well?
If the site accommodated a store, which we're presuming, we're operating on the presumption that we're hoping it will, yes, we would be transferring the license to that facility there. To be candid with you, we just simply are too premature in the engineering phase of this. I don't want to say it's a complicated lot, but there's a lot of things going on there. So I'm not avoiding answering your question. I just can't answer it with the detail that you may want right now.
No, that's fine. I just was curious if you could, but that's fine. I know how engineering and siting projects goes, so.
Absolutely.
Okay, no other questions, and I don't see anybody from the public asking to speak. Do you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor by roll call. Pat?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
Aye. Entertain another motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer of all alcoholic beverages package store license from Vinyl Square Holdings LLC, doing business as Vinyl Square's Craft Beer House and Premium Liquors, to Viso Thwan, doing business as Chelmsford Wine and Spirits at 11 Vinyl Square.
Second.
A motion second, all in favor by roll call. Pat?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Congratulations.
Thank you very much for the select board hearing us, and thank you very much for your time. We appreciate the professionalism of this board, and we look forward to continuing to work with all of you.
Good luck.
Luck.
Thank you.
Good luck. All right, and that brings us to a poll petition. Is someone here from?
I don't think I see him. Hi, this is Joe Iantilli from National Grid Electric.
How are you, Joe?
Not too bad. Yourself?
You're doing good.
Good. I'm here to talk about the petition for 11 Hope Street for the poll. If anybody has any questions about the job.
Does anybody have any questions for Joe about what we're doing
Could you
here?
could you maybe just give a brief description of what it is you want to do?
Sure. So
The
we have a
public.
residential customer at 11 Hope Street, and this service is coming off the right side of the house. And they did an upgrade to the house, and they want to move it to the left-hand side. But because there's no poles farther down from the corner of the street, we need to put a pole across the street. And with that, we'll be picking up also number 15. So it goes straight across, not over their roof. They have a front door porch. And so we're going to put a pole, and we're also going to pick up number 15. So it's not as long. So it'll be a little more rigid and give them better quality service.
Thank you.
Pays for the poll when you do this?
I'm sorry.
Just out of curiosity, Joe. Yeah, just out of curiosity, who pays for the poll when you do this?
Who pays for the poll? Well, it would be partially the customer and partially the tariff from the state. So if it's considered an
Just curious,
upgrade
that's
on
all.
yep, not a problem. There's state tariffs to everything we do for every penny we spend. That's why we're regulated by the state. And so we go through our tariffs, and whatever's left over would be the customer.
Got it.
Why I can't get in the scene here?
Anybody else have any other questions?
Here we are.
Entertain a motion?
It's a public hearing, Ken.
Oh, well, do you want to? Okay, I don't have anybody in the chat box. Sorry about that.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to
Have to
close the
speak.
public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion is second. All in favor by roll call. Emily?
Yes.
Sorry about that. Bless you. Pat?
Aye.
George? George?
Aye. Sorry.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
I'll make a motion to approve the National Grid poll petition for Hope Street as presented.
Second.
Pat, we have a motion and a second. All in favor by roll call. Pat?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Congratulations, Joe.
Thank you. Have a great night now.
You too. Stay safe.
You too now. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
So how do I leave this? Leave meeting.
All right. With that, we'll move on to item 7, our reports and presentations. And we'll start with Fire Chief Gary Ryan. Chief, I think you got something going on with your background. There you
There
go.
we go. How's that? A little better? Thank you,
Yep.
Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the Select Board, and good evening, Mr. Manager. First, I believe the grant was might have been the first thing to discuss. So I was very happy to
Yes.
receive the call from Senator Markey's office last week, and also outreach efforts from Senator Warren's office, that we received over $42,000 in desperately needed COVID-19 funds. These funds will be used to purchase personal protective equipment to protect our firefighters as we face a potential second wave going into the fall. These funds are very difficult to obtain. Grants are very hard to get, so I'm very fortunate, thankful for my staff, thankful for Captain Bill Shellback for kind of pulling this all together to getting these awards. So thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Very much.
Congratulations, Chief.
Okay. Can you see that?
Yes.
You got it. Thank you. Okay. First, let me thank you for your time. And also, I am very mindful that we're in a very difficult budget cycle. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present this project. You have very difficult choices ahead of you. I'm very mindful and appreciative of your time. So this is a look at engine 2, even though that street sign is blocking engine 2, that is 35 Princeton Street. Let me. Okay. What I try to do is try to capture some key events, kind of bring us up to speed. It's been a while since we've talked about this subject. So you may recall back, and again, this is not totally encapsulating everything that the Permanent Building Committee has discussed or done. But back, if you may recall, back in November 4th, 2019, Criterion Associates presented their report to the Board of Selectmen. And it really had two key agenda items, two key focus points. One, assess the current substations, north, south, east, and west, to see if it's suitable to expand staffing. Number two, take a look at what we would need to do if it wasn't suitable. Take a look at the response times, if we could potentially go from 5 stations to 4 or 3. Look at the response as far as response time. Take a look at what the impact will be. November 19th, the town manager asked the Permanent Building Committee, he charged them to explore options to expand.
Excuse me, Chief. I
ahead.
think you need to advance a slide for the public.
I'm on the timeline of events.
No, that's not what's showing.
No, we're still looking. Yeah, we're looking at the fire department. We're still on slide 1.
Okay, I have slide 2. Can somebody advance it?
I think it looks like it came from your computer, Chief Ryan. I don't know if you put it into PowerPoint mode. We're still looking at as if you were doing the PowerPoint itself. So maybe if you could, if you're looking at part 2 in PowerPoint mode, maybe if you come back.
Okay, I'm on slide 2. If somebody could advance it on your end, I can speak to the slides. Is that possible?
Gary,
Yes.
I think you're sharing the wrong screen.
Okay. Okay. How's that?
There we go.
You got it? Thank you. Okay, so you're on, just so we're on slide 2, station assessment? Correct? Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, so back November 19th, 2019, Town Manager Paul Cohen asked the Permanent Building Committee, charged them to explore options for the expansion or renovation of the North Fire Station. That was done because no matter what option, if there was a consolidation of stations, Engine 2 wasn't going anywhere. So that is, I believe, the reason why we were taking a look at that. January 7th of this year, Permanent Building Committee toured the North Fire Station to evaluate the existing infrastructure and the current living conditions. The fire station is 4,500 square feet, 3,000 of it apparatus bay. February 4th, construction options were explored and the concept of a modular building was introduced. March 4th, preliminary design options were presented by Triumph. Triumph is the one that did the additional buildings for the elementary schools when we had full-day kindergarten. And in March 31st, the Permanent Building Committee approved the modular design for the North Fire Station. Okay, and on slide 3, can everybody see that fire station analysis? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right. In the Criterion Associates report, the report noted that the substations were built for 2 firefighters and said that it would be seriously challenged if we add a 3rd or 4th firefighter. Stations were designed for a single gender workforce, not suitable for a modern fire rescue workplace. Basically, the outlying stations have 1 restroom and shower and 1 shared sleeping quarters. The outlying stations, if you've been to them, they lack the accommodations found in modern fire stations. They don't have a separate laundry or gear storage, office space, decon room, or workout area. And we have utility issues in all the outlying stations, the outdated plumbing, electrical, and the thermal envelope. Basically, they're not energy efficient buildings. Part of the fire station analysis, the most significant issue that was noted was the building of the bedrooms, the bunk rooms inside the apparatus bay. Even though we have what we call Plimo vent systems, the big hose that you see us attached to the exhaust of the trucks when they pull in, the firefighters, when they sleep, they're exposed to carcinogens from the diesel exhaust. And there's a lack of egress to get out of the bedroom. There's only one way in or out of that bedroom in the apparatus bay. August 8th of last year, the Mass Interlocal Insurance Association, better known as MIA, issued a risk management report to the town for the Chelmsford Fire Department. In there, they noted what they call the general duty clause, which says that the agency has an obligation to protect workers from unregulated hazards. And the hazard being that we have bedrooms inside the garage space. They noted 2 recent incidents. One, December 30th, 2015, when the ladder truck for Acton Fire Department caught on fire inside the station. Number 2, in the picture you see in front of you, is the Concord engine 4, which caught on firefighters while they were sleeping at 12:48 in the morning. Estimated loss over $2.5 million. Also, I don't have to mention, during the pandemic, you've seen our bunk rooms, they're very close together. NFPA 1581 is the standard which tells you that the bunks need to be 60 square feet per bunk. Social distancing. So. March 8th, 1954, this is the actual article, Article 28, which the town meeting voted to appoint a committee to formulate plans to build a fire station at the Princeton Street location, Princeton Street school location. In June of 1956, Fire Chief Alan Kidder received approval from the Board of Selectmen. W. Granger Company was awarded the contract for $63,000. And what's interesting is they began their work in August of 56. They granted an occupancy 4 months later. You'll never see anything like that today. And to note, the station was designed for a ladder truck or 4 engines, 4 pumper trucks. So what that tells you is that they didn't have a plan. They didn't design the station to accommodate bunk rooms. It was an afterthought. Taking a look, I try to do my best to grab some pictures. Starting with the left, going clockwise, that is the front of the station, as you can see it from 35 Princeton Street. The picture on the right is the municipal lot, also located on Gay Street. This picture, the one on the left, is the rear drive-through for the fire station. And you'll note the picture on the left is a bedroom window. The proposed plans that we have would open that up, take the bedroom out and put another drive-through apparatus bay. And the picture on the right is the station from Washington Street, also the access to the municipal lot. Coming in through the front door is a small lobby, and there is an office to the right, the former fire prevention office. Coming in, you see the bathroom, which we have put in for a capital request to upgrade the bathroom. As you can see, it needs attention. The locker rooms are put in the hallway off the kitchen, which is, they're supposed to be separate. Kitchen, we don't have any GFI outlets. One outlet for basically a coffee. There's no outlets for a microwave. There's no for a toaster. And the fact that it's not GFI protected was noted in the Meyer report. Going downstairs, engine 2 is the only station that has a basement. As you can see, we were written out because we have exposure from the ceiling. It's supposed to be protected, it's supposed to be covered, showing the roof supports. When you go down the stairs, it's not ADA compliant. The railings are supposed to be at a certain level. You're not supposed to, it's supposed to be a certain level from the stair tread to the railing. You're not supposed to have that much space. Taking a look at the apparatus bay, the picture to the left may be hard to see, but there's some cracks in the wall. Certainly you can see the openings in the ceiling. The picture to the right, it's a 3-bay station. Typically you would have an engine. We have our bucket truck up front, you may be hard to see, and also our boat. Talking about the bunk room, you see to the left, that is the entrance to the bunk room, but you will note that the gym equipment is also in the apparatus room. In the bunks, we try to space them as far apart as we can. But again, with the pandemic, you're trying to get 6 feet of separation. So what is a renovation? If you're looking at the building, the living quarters, the office, the kitchen, the proposal is it would take that building and take it out. It would take the basement out, it would demolish the building. In its place would be a permanent foundation and a slab, and a 2-story modular structure would be put on the slab, a permanent foundation. Each floor would be 2,100 square feet. So again, no basement. The fire station would be protected with a sprinkler system, which the only station protected right now is the fire headquarters. 6 individual bedrooms. Again, that is, if you build a fire station today, you're going to separate the bedrooms. The station will have the ability to accommodate solar panels to try to become a more green, to try to reduce our carbon footprint. We would have a separate area for gear storage. And I say separate area, it has its separate ventilation system on today's codes. A separate area for locker and laundry rooms, an ADA compliant bathroom, dedicated workout area on the 2nd floor. And again, the bunk room, which is currently in the apparatus bay, would be repurposed for additional drive-through bay. And if you have any questions, just jump in. So what are the benefits? It's a modern fire station, and it'll provide the same response time for the residents of North Chelmsford. It's in the same footprint. There's no impact on the parking lot. It's in the same footprint. It's a station designed for all genders. It provides additional space for emergency storm coverage. Again, right now we have 3 firefighters in there. We would have up to 6 bedrooms to accommodate additional staffing for emergencies. And it'll be a compliant workspace, protecting our firefighters and also the town from regulatory requirements. This is a little difficult to see if you're at home, but basically the first floor has an entryway for customers, kitchen to the left, living room to the right, a small office space, and again, a dedicated room for gear coming off the apparatus room. 2nd floor has 6 individual bedrooms, a laundry room, and again, a workout area to the back of the building. So what are the cost options and time frame? The Permanent Building Committee looked at a number of options. One was a complete tear down of not only the building, but also the apparatus Bay to tear it down, rebuild 6,000 square feet at a cost of 734. You're looking at over 4.4 million. And the other thing I did not bring up is temporary housing. When we do this project, time is very sensitive because the trucks are going to have to be outside. Obviously, we can't do that during the winter, the cold months. So we have to have a particular point of year during the spring, late summer, in which to get this project done. So there's a cost allowance for temporary housing of the firefighters. Under option one, it was about 650,000. So for a total cost of over $5 million. Option two, which is the modular building. The modular building comes in over $2.5 million. We have funds in there for the renovation of the existing apparatus space, about 200,000 for the temporary living quarters for the firefighters, and a contingency fund for furnishing, the sprinkler system, and communications equipment, for a total of $3,400,000. Very difficult to see the Gantt chart, but basically some key milestones in this schedule. If we go to town meeting in October, if the town meeting approves it, we will try to put a request for proposal out in December. Hopefully the project would be awarded in December 23rd. Manufacturing would begin on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. Sounds like good news. Site mobilization and the installation of temporary living quarters would begin on March 23rd. The installation of the building itself would happen on May 10th. And the final occupancy would be July 13th of 2020. So I will try to answer any questions you have. I know Gary Persichetti, I believe, is on this. He is a member of the Permanent Building Committee as well.
Chief, is that timeline the same for option one and option two?
You want me to answer that, Gary?
Yes.
No, it isn't. Option one, which would be the total tear down, would take approximately 12 to 13 months, and it would also displace. It would also displace the fire trucks. They would have to go somewhere else for the winter. With option two, what we're planning on is the trucks being out front of the station when the apparatus bays are being fixed and a new door cut in during the months that they can be outside. So it would be in a warmer weather, where the other option being a full 12 months versus 8 months of a modular one. You know, you do not have to displace them. Both of them call for a set of modulars. Again, big difference is you're only renting them for a shorter period of time on the 8 months versus the total of 12.
So the proposed timeline is for option two.
Yes, that is for option two, yes.
So Gary, both options maintain the same apparatus there, is that correct?
I'm sorry, they do what now? I'm sorry, Pat.
The apparatus does not change as far as what's the apparatus that's stored there.
Yeah, what it does for them is it from a fire point of view, Gary can answer that. But what it does for them is with the bunks taken out and the weight room or workout room taken out, it cuts in the fourth door and gives you 2 drive-through bays, which you don't have now.
But it would be with the same equipment that's kept there right now.
As far as I know, Gary.
It would be the same with the option to put another reserve up there. We just got a second reserve for the first time in 5 years. So that will give us some flexibility to put another reserve engine. So if a truck is being repaired or going out for maintenance, we could have a reserve truck placed in that station.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions? Well, thank you, Chief, and Gary. Good job on your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for thinking a little creatively there. Get the price down. That's always appreciated.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
All right, that brings us to item 8 on the agenda, Town Manager Bid Awards. Paul, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, I have 2 bid awards this evening. The first is electricity and natural gas supply contracts. I mentioned that at a previous meeting that these were coming up. This is for the town's electricity and natural gas supply as the town buildings facilities. Bids were out on August 19th. For the electricity, there were 3 bidders, Constellation, EDF, and First Point. I'm pleased to report to the board that the low bid for a 36-month period beginning December 2021 would be 8.7 cents per kilowatt hour, and that is actually less than the current contract rate of 9.22 cents per kilowatt hour. So I would recommend and seek your confirmation that to award the bid for the town's electricity supply to Constellation at 8.7 cents per kilowatt hour for the 36-month period beginning effective December 2021.
Do you have any questions or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the electricity contract to Constellation for 36 months at 8.77 cents per kilowatt hour as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor by roll call. Pat?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And then similarly with the natural gas, for the town's electricity, natural gas supply, our current contract expires in July of 2022. And again, the reason we're doing this is because we're trying to take advantage of historically low utility rates as a result of the current global market conditions. So in that case, we had 3 bidders for natural gas supply. Again, we're looking at a 36-month period, and the low bid was from Direct Energy Power Options at $52.76 per therm. And again, this is less than the current price that we're purchasing natural gas for. So again, what we're trying to do is take advantage of the market and do a 36-month contract at $52.76 per therm to again provide us with budget predictability and stability, and also just lock in the current favorable market conditions and also regulatory conditions, much like the electricity. So again, we would seek your confirmation of the bid award for natural gas supply to Direct Energy Power Options at $52.76 per therm.
I'll make a motion to accept the bid for Direct Energy Power Options for 36-month contract for natural gas supply at $0.5276 per therm as presented.
Second.
The motion is second. All in favor by roll call. Pat?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The second bid award is for the Route 3 interchange markets analysis study. Evan Belansky, as the board is aware, because Evan appeared before you, conducted and oversaw this procurement. He's on vacation this week. He asked me to bring it forward. In this case, we had the RFP was issued in mid-July and bids were open on August 14th to again conduct a market study of the 3 highway interchanges. 5 responses were received. They were all responsive, and so we're seeking the board's confirmation of the bid award to the lowest price responsive bid from RKG Associates at a cost of $55,000. And I've attached a copy of RKG's market analysis, their proposal in the packet this evening. And clearly they have extensive experience in this type of study in Massachusetts area. And again, I think that, they'll come up with a favorable market analysis for the 3 interchanges along Route 3, aside from the study that was done on 129, which we already have completed for us. So I would seek your confirmation of that award, and obviously we'll have them come back and report with their findings when their analysis is complete. It doesn't bind the town to anything. It just provides a real estate market analysis for the community in terms of considerations for the future. And I think that's important to note about this. And I think if you looked at their plan, they explicitly stayed out, and of course we sought this in the RFP, the interaction with the stakeholders and the neighborhood and the inputs along the way. And I think that that's really a strong point of their proposal is that this isn't just going to be them going out there and talking to Evan or me and so forth, that they talk about engaging the stakeholders and coming back to the stakeholders with their work and really making it driven so that there's transparency and input in terms of the work plan and effort that they're going to move forward. So I think it's I think they're really on the mark in terms of their approach. And again, I would look forward to the to seeing the results of this effort.
Oh, I have a question. I agree. They seem very, very qualified, have a lot of experience and a very aggressive timeline to have a report back to us by next March. Given the environment we're in, is it going to be an accurate portrayal of the situation we're in? I guess that would be my question. Should we hold off a little while until things settle down a little bit more? Or is it going to be the same no matter what timeline it's done in?
When I read their report, I think they're very attuned to the existing conditions that are out there. And in fact, they note, that it speaks to the, the efforts of what's really out there in the market. And they talk about their experience in other communities indicates that rental housing is an increasingly important component of mixed-use development projects, and therefore a potentially critical consideration in a specific economic development strategy in the vicinity of the interchanges. And also they note that in addition to the transportation system inventories, they know about the infrastructure on the water and sewer provided by the town will be reviewed and the available capacities. So I think that they're aware of the market conditions in terms of what's out there in this transformative period. I think I think it's a time to move forward now. And hopefully by having next March, we'll I think we'll be in a period next March and next spring in terms of, the economic recovery, let's hope, in terms of the multi-year effort that's going to take to bring us back to where we were prior to the pandemic. So I think it may be helpful in terms of a strategy, in terms of what investments, if any, the town wants to make, going forward, and really what's going to be probably a 2 to 3 year recovery period. So I think I understand the notion, Pat, but I don't think that this is a temporary situation where we want to wait 6 months or 9 months. My sense is this is probably a 2 to 3 year recovery period, and therefore, and some even think it may be longer than that. I think therefore the question of is how does the town look to move forward given the new realities that are out there?
So you think it might put us ahead of the curve? You think it might put us ahead of the curve rather than behind the curve?
I think. If you look at for example, look at what the Fed announced last week. The Fed came out at the end of last week, and it was sort of underreported. They basically announced a whole new approach that they're no longer being constrained by the concern of inflation. They're concerned with an issue of employment and economic stability. And in talking to market people, you're probably looking at a prolonged period of maybe 3 to 5 years with the current interest rate climate that we're in now, and they're in a recovery period. So I'm thinking that this study sort of looks at what is the new reality that's out there, and where does the town go over the next 3 to 5 years, if anywhere. We're fine. They're doing the market analysis. the town will decide what, if any, of that to use. But I think it's an important piece going forward because, again, what we're looking at is we're already aggressive and active on 129. This is going at the Drum Hill corridor going forward. This is looking at, Chelmsford Street going forward, and also Groton Road going forward. And so I think we really need to be mindful because it is going to be a challenge in terms of a 3 to 5 year period of recovery and investment and creation going forward. So I think this puts us at the forefront as opposed to waiting. I don't know how long you wait for, because again, everything that I'm hearing and understanding is we're in it for a long haul in terms of a recovery.
Okay, thanks.
Paul, you keep saying recovery. You're talking about a real estate recovery?
No, I'm talking about an economic recovery. We are
Okay.
We are looking at an economic recovery that's probably going to take 3 to 5 years to put us back to the employment situation that we were, and probably the market conditions of where we were. I mean, sadly, what we're looking at now is job losses and job or permanent closures of small businesses and so forth, and everything that I'm hearing and I'm sure you're seeing in terms of the media and financial media and so forth indicates that we're probably in for a 3 to 5 year economic recovery coming forward. I mean, yes,
Are they doing a market study of real estate values, or are they doing a market study?
They're doing a market analysis, but they also note in their market analysis that one of the aspects of the market analysis is residential real estate, and they note that that rental housing is an important component of mixed use development projects and potentially critical consideration in specific economic development strategy to reposition and expand upon desired development in the vicinity of the interchanges. So what I'm saying is that I think they're looking holistically, and I think we've seen in our own experience that clearly residential development, the whole idea of live, work, play, and interactive uses is one part of economic recovery. And so again, I think they're doing a whole market analysis, but again, they come back with a market analysis. It's up to the town to decide what and whether to do anything with the report. And that obviously would take the place of town meeting if there were to be any zoning changes.
Okay, so let's take a look back at what the Route 40 Study Committee did, which was come up with the idea of a dense multi-use, multi-purpose live, work, play situation. And that was rejected. Let's take a look at the recent redo of a building in Drum Hill where the planning board poo-pooed the idea of any kind of residential there because who wants to live within walking distance of anything? That was panned. You have the Glenview trying to rezone for multi-family instead of having a neighborhood restaurant, which would make far more sense in terms of actually having a livable, pleasant neighborhood to be in with a neighborhood center for gathering and socializing. You have historically a glut of retail space that is overlapping, repetitive. It's just been boxes after boxes. It's been the same cookie cutter thing, much like so many of the, cookie cutter housing developments that we've seen. So I am not confident in any company's ability to actually plan for a pandemic that we all failed to plan for. I'm not confident in a company coming in and doing a better job than the year the Route 40 committee spent on one of those areas. I am not confident in the town voting for dense multi-use areas near, transportation areas, given the fact that it has rejected roundly doing anything with Vinyl Square, given that it wasted somebody's time in asking them to design an overlay for Vinyl Square and has never done anything with it, given that it spent an entire year chatting about Route 40, wasting a whole lot of time on that and then not doing anything about it. And given that Drum Hill still looks like 1988 with a facade. I don't think that this is the right time. I think that given the recent discovery that we don't have enough sewage that we could have predicted, and should have been predicted, there is no room for development. None at all. So no, I think we can sit and wait and save some money and pay off the unpaid for pensions from past generations, make sure that comes down, and then see what happens. Because I honestly don't think that there's much more space for retail anywhere.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just probably a little response. One is we can't wait. This is a grant award. It's not the town's tax dollars. If we don't expend the money, we'll have to return the grant award, and therefore we get no data. I think the availability and the acquisition of data is always helpful. As I said earlier, what the town decides to do with it, we don't know. But I'd rather have the data that is coming to us from a grant to at least know what the options are going forward is helpful. What the town chooses is the town's choice. But I think we're in a better position having the data than returning the grant and not having the data.
I mean, personally, I'd love to see the data now, only because what I'm hearing on the street and hearing from clients that are trying to buy houses, move from Boston out to the suburbs because of what's going on with the pandemic, just they want more space. You know, I have clients that move from Manhattan out to Groton. And I'm hearing, you know, houses are going 20, 30,000 over asking. You can't find apartments for less than $1,000 a bedroom. And I don't see, or I'm not hearing there's any end in sight. The inventory in Chelmsford for residential is, you know, at an all-time low. So I don't know. I think I'd like to see the data right now to compare and see what the options are. We do have a housing shortage.
If we do move forward with this, I just had a couple of questions, Paul. Some of them are in the noise, and I can follow up with Evan when he comes back, but things like, and my questions are in the approach section that begins on page 42. But they make statements like, in addition, we walk the streets and talk to those who live and work within the market of Chelmsford. I don't know what that looks like in a residential area. And so there's a couple of things like that, you know, I could get clarification from Evan on when he comes back. Bigger picture questions, I guess, is on page 47, task 3.3, the infrastructure assessment. I see comments about looking at things like transportation infrastructure. There is a statement on water and sewer, but if we move forward with this, I think it's very important that they have as much accurate data as they can have on our sewer situation, our water situation, and even the schools, the school populations and what their assessments might be doing to that, because that also is going to play back into affecting water, sewer, and other infrastructure considerations. So that was one thought I had. And then on page 48, I had, I guess, two questions. Task 3.5, the fiscal impact analysis. Can you say more about what that means? I'm just not.
Oh.
How do they quantify a fiscal impact analysis for a study?
Oh, for example, I mean, and you would actually see this as something like the UMass West Campus, if that would be redeveloped. What they would do is they would come out and determine basically the revenues and expenditures impact on the town from the development. So, for example, you know, they'll look at the estimated tax impact per square foot for the new construction or renovation or rehabilitation, and then they would then offset that with what are the additional costs for the town to service those areas to determine what the net benefit is. And therefore, as you said, issues such as schools would be a component of that. If you're building housing and you have to educate students, then that becomes a cost in terms of the cost per pupil for educate, as well as capital costs for facilities, which is different than if you put a commercial space in and you get a certain amount of tax revenue, which may be less, but you don't have the associated cost. So that's the issue of fiscal impact analysis.
Okay.
That would be done on their study, and really is done on major projects, you know, that are approached to a community.
And then my other question on the same page was task 4 and 4.1. you said tonight, and when we talked about this previously, it was about just at least getting the data, and then we can figure out over time what we do with it, if anything. Those sections are written like they're going to give us recommendations and action plans and responsibilities to jump in and go forward. And I'm assuming that that's proposal writing, but
Yeah.
I wanted to just confirm that, you know, we spend $50,000 on a study and get some data. I think we need to make sure we take the time to prudently address what we actually do with it, if
Right,
anything.
yeah, I mean, one of their comments is, and I have it highlighted, we will work with the town to identify achievable regulatory changes that are in line with market and real estate findings, but also politically feasible for Chelmsford. And I think that's what they're getting at is, you know, they're not going to come back with something that's, you know, pie in the sky, but has no chance of success.
Okay.
And I think that's where the community input, as you noted earlier in their approach, is so critical. Where when you say about how do they, you know, if they're walking around, I would think that they would walk around and have times to meet with neighbors and property owners and stakeholders to get their input, and that helps determine from them in terms of what's politically feasible. So, for example,
all I'm saying, Paul, excuse me, I don't want to,
Yeah.
all I'm saying is, like, if you look at strategy development, they'll prepare an action plan. And later on, I think they talk about assignments for the action plan. And so I think that having something tangible and actionable is good.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to make sure that our intent was still the same, that we get the data from them and then we decide over time and with careful consideration what we do with it.
Yeah, and I think what we do is have them come in along the way and touch base as they're nearing that point. You're right. You don't want them just come in at the end saying this is what we found. So I think that's the case. That
I think we're still talking past each other a little, Paul. So let me try again. When they
Sure.
say we're going to give you an action plan and responsibilities, right? Is it our intent to just go implement the action plan?
No.
Okay, that piece. Okay. That's all I'm trying to get at.
Well, what I was trying to get at is the development of that action plan should have the community's input in terms of what's achieved.
Yeah.
Exactly.
George, did you have anything or?
No, all set. Thank you.
So I'll make a motion to approve the bid award for the Route 3 Highway Interchange Planning Market Study under grant money to RKG Associates.
Second.
The motion is second. All in favor by roll call. Emily?
Sure. Aye.
George?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've just got a few matters under my reports, and I'll try to be brief. I know you've got some agenda ahead of you. First thing I want to report under my report is the home rule petition. It's noted earlier this evening. This is the first meeting of the Select Board. Last Tuesday evening at 5:25 p.m. on August the 25th, Governor Baker signed into law what's now Chapter 164 of the Acts of 2020, which amends the town charter to change the Board of Selectmen to the agenda neutral name of Select Board. And again, I want to thank the efforts of Senator Barrett's office and Representative Tom Golden, who filed the bill and led it through the House, to implement the vote of the town meeting at last fall. So that's now official, and we're doing our best to update the website and other communication to rightly note the Select Board title. I also want to inform the board that on September 1st, which is tomorrow, we received a predated letter, obviously, that the town of Chelmsford has been awarded a $100,000 Green Communities Competitive Grant Award, which will provide roughly $50,000 for LED lighting at the town offices and $50,000 for weatherization at the McCarthy Middle School. And again, I want to note the efforts by Public Works in terms of Melissa Joyce, our sustainability coordinator, and Gary Persichetti and Kathleen Canavan, who have pulled together the work on this application and have really kept us as a competitive entity on these grant awards. So again, wanted to commend them for their efforts for this Green Communities Award. Next on my report is was a referral from last meeting. The question that came from Selectwoman Timmons regarding the town manager's appointment authorities pertaining to the assistant town manager and town council Paul Haverty has provided a report that was emailed to you that basically that appointment is within the purview of the town manager without confirmation from the Board of Selectmen. I also, following up from last Monday night's special town meeting, the purchase and sale agreement that the Board of Selectmen signed prior to the town meeting calls for a closing on October 1st, which is just over a month away. I know there's a lot of excitement and enthusiasm for the new 54 acre parcel coming in Board of Open Space in the community. And I have directed town council to, move towards the closing. I'll also be working with the land trust to do the preservation restriction and engage Audubon Society to do the base mark survey, which will be a permanent record of the property. But one thing I'll also do is as my responsibility for the maintenance and oversight of town properties is I'm going to form an ad hoc advisory committee to basically assist, and I'm thinking this is like a 30-day effort, to provide for an orderly public use and maintenance of this historic property. And I think this would fulfill the Warren Pohl family's desire to permanently protect the space, which obviously will be permanently protected by the preservation restriction. But I really want to be mindful of the neighbors, the Warren family, Pohl family who's still at the site, and really start to address the issues of parking, marked trails, maintenance needs, and so forth. And clearly, as we know, we're fortunate in our community to have the benefit of the Chelmsford Open Space stewards, who have an exemplary record in assisting the town with other properties, and particularly other farm properties, being Sunny Meadow Farm in particular. And so I've been in communication with Phil Stanway, whether he'd help the efforts to lead and participate on this committee. If many of you know Phil, Phil's not a committee person, but he's a task person. So I said, well, Phil, this isn't a permanent, structured committee. I said, this is a task, 30-day window. He suggested Carl Bischoff, who was also very instrumental in terms of the promotion and tours of the site, and then basically use them as the leverage point to bring in the abutters and the community as a whole in a dialogue and discussion over the next 30 days in terms of what are the issues of concern, so that that basically from the neighbor's perspective, the abutters, that that they're not adversely impacted, but from the community's perspective, that there's information and guidance. And so again, critical issues such as parking, marked trails, designated farming areas, and basically looking towards who would farm that property going forward in the future, and how that should be done. So my goal would be to to get going on this, promote this, and obviously with Labor Day coming, have them hit the ground right after Labor Day. So to put out the word tonight and in the week ahead, and get them going right after Labor Day. And again, the beauty of an advisory committee for a superintendent of schools or a town manager is you're not constrained by the open meeting law and posting and minutes and all this other stuff. But what they can do is they can be flexible. They can have meetings on the site. They can do outreach by social media and have sessions on the site and so forth, and then come back with a plan. What I'm targeting is your September 28th meeting, just over a month away. Again, a broad level plan of what's going to take place there. The town obtains title. Where should people be? As I mentioned earlier, where should people be expected to park? Where should people look for trails and so forth? And so that's my intention. And again, wanted to share this with you this evening and welcome any thoughts or feedback that you may have in terms of making us a good steward of the property, but also a good neighbor. And so that's what I have for your consideration this evening.
Okay.
All right. If there's no comments,
I think it makes.
Okay.
it makes
All right. No,
sense.
all right. No, but I
Yeah.
you know, this is an important piece. I mean, you know, and the last thing we want to have is confusion and frustration and complaints and so forth. So we'll go from there. And again, we've been good neighbors with Sheehan Farm, Sunny Meadow Farm, and so forth. And again, we're just trying to, you know, get an action plan going forward. The next item I have is a scheduling matter. We're, you know, later this evening, I'll be going over the second and final draft of the October 19th fall annual town meeting warrant. And in 2 weeks from tonight, on the 14th of September, you're scheduled to sign the warrant for the fall annual town meeting. In speaking to town accountant Darlene Lucier, we expect between now and your next meeting, we'll receive our certified free cash from the Department of Revenue. She will be available in 2 weeks to come in and give a financial report in terms of the close of the last fiscal year, where things stand for this current fiscal year. And then obviously once the warrant is signed in 2 weeks, I think it's a good occasion, as we've done, is to bring the select board, the school committee and the finance committee and the budgetary discussion in terms of where are we at today? You know, how do we close the year? Where are we at today? What are we looking at for fall town meeting? And then just beyond that, you know, where are we looking at in terms of budgetary planning for fiscal year 22? My thought on that date was Wednesday, September 16th. And I know that Pat sent me a note that presents a conflict for her in terms of NIMCOG. But and so we'll have to find a date. But the thought is again, you sign the warrant on the 14th. The school committee is scheduled to meet on the 15th, which is the first day of school. And then the finance committee would normally meet on the 17th, which is once you sign the warrant, for them to meet over the next couple of weeks, beginning with that 17th, to wrap up their work to get their report out and meet first week of October, so that it's timely issued for the October 19th fall annual town meeting. So again, my proposal is Wednesday, the September 16th at 7 p.m. I know that now know that presents a conflict for Selectwoman Wojcik. I don't know if there's another date or if there are any dates that meet everybody's needs. So, but I do think that we should have a meeting in that time frame so that we can have discussions in terms of how best to proceed with the budgetary status in terms of the completion of fiscal 21 and thoughts of you know, in terms of how we move till 22. And again, I think on that meeting, as typical, and I put it in the agenda material, hearing from the town accountant, hearing from the superintendent of schools, hearing from the finance director, and then myself in terms of the process moving forward. And then finally scheduling the date for the next tri-board meeting in terms of when and where the board wants to meet. And obviously, in today's climate, that would have to be a virtual meeting in September.
I mean, I personally can make
Are we
any
looking
night
at
to
the
pick.
16th or a different date, Paul?
Well,
I can
I
accommodate
would
the
really like to
16th.
be able to attend this meeting, and I can't move the NEMCOG meeting. So if we could find another date, I would appreciate it. Or if we could move this meeting earlier. I mean, if we could do like 5:30, then, you know, I could be there for an hour and a half because my other meeting is also virtual. So it's easy to switch to the other. But I don't know if that's schedulable for, you know, I know the school committee typically starts their meetings at 6 o'clock anyway, but I know the finance committee usually starts at 7:30. So I don't know how that would fit with their schedule.
You're suggesting 5:30 on the 16th, Pat?
If we had to do it on the 16th, I mean, otherwise I would say, I don't know, either the Wednesday. Paul, do you have a suggestion?
Yeah, the other option would be the following Monday, which would be the 21st of September. That's a night that you do not meet. You're scheduled to meet the 14th and the 28th of September. So I would say either the 21st of September or the 16th at earlier in the evening.
I can do either. I don't know what the rest of the board can do.
I can do either.
My preference would be the 21st, so that I wouldn't have two meetings back to back.
All right with me.
Emily,
I can meet either one. Doesn't really matter.
So am I hearing the 21st? Is that the consensus?
Pat, did you say the 21st or the 23rd?
21st. I could
It's
do
almost the 21st.
also, but 21st is,
A Monday.
yeah, that Monday.
Okay.
All right, so I'll send out a notice to the Finance Committee and the School Committee targeting Monday, September 21st at 7 p.m. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. And then the final matter I had on my report, which is I mentioned a moment ago, is I do have the second and what will be the final draft of the October 19th fall annual town meeting. Again, you're scheduled to sign the warrant in 2 weeks on September 14th. And I'll just note the changes from the earlier version that I provided to you 2 weeks ago. I'll just note that there's now 19 articles. Articles 2 through 6 are probably a consent agenda, and I put those in order like we did last fall because I think it just helps with the flow of the meeting. That would be the cemetery fund, the appropriation for the infrastructure fund monies, which is a nominal amount. I think it was like $7,000 under that state program. The annual sewer construction stabilization fund from the interest earnings that were part of the free cash. And then the new article, wasn't on the previous draft, was the affordable housing stabilization fund. And that would transfer monies that the planning board has received from its projects in the last year or so regarding the affordable housing payment in lieu of monies, and to just deposit them into the affordable housing stabilization fund as called for in the bylaws. So it's not an expenditure, it's just a deposit into the fund, which then means it would take a 2/3 vote to expend those monies at a future town meeting. And then Article 6 would be funding for collective bargaining agreements as a placeholder. So that would be the front of the warrant. Article 7 would be any amendments to the current fiscal year operating budget. Article 8 is a new article. And since the last meeting, we received a correspondence from the property owner of basically what's in the state property of Parker Road, and it's parcel 102-410-4. And I put a map of that in the packet for you. But more importantly, it's a very small parcel of property on Parker Road that actually is located in front of the Wright Reservation. It's 0.14 acres. And it's actually across from what's now the Warren Pole property. I forwarded this information to Dave McLaughlin, the chair of the Conservation Commission. He got back to me saying the Conservation Commission was in favor of the town acquiring this parcel. We're talking a nominal amount of money. It's less than $20,000. And I know it's hard to see in that little map, but basically it would just add basically a bunch of frontage for this orphan parcel that's there on the roadway. So that's a new article on the warrant.
Can you explain that a little bit better? I mean, it does, like you said, it seems to be a little orphan parcel.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
I can't tell you how it happened over time, but the Wright Reservation is the big piece that's right behind it. If you look at the map, from in terms of the traditional portrait of the paper, that big parcel behind it is the Wright Reservation, and then the sliver across the street, the polygon across the street that's narrow there and opens up, that's the Warren Pole property. So I can't tell you how historically that happened, Pat, but it is there. And once I heard back from Chairman McLaughlin from the Conservation Commission, I immediately notified Town Council Paul Haverty. He had his associate contact the family, and they basically are, you know, at this point, moving towards what would be basically the town acquisition of this property, as I said, for less than $20,000. And basically, we're looking at is the appraised value for the property. It's under the procurement law. It's you don't have to do a formal appraisal and so forth because it's a de minimis parcel in terms of the real estate value of the parcel. And so again, this sort of, you're right, Pat, I don't think there's much other use for the property, and I can't explain how it originated, but clearly it adds frontage to the property at that location for, again, a nominal amount of money.
Is it owned by somebody in that area?
It's owned by, yes, it was. And they're in the process of selling the other real estate. The estate is. And so this is sort of a like you said, an anomaly. And then they reached out to the town saying, well, the town have any interest in acquiring this land? And so that's really what's taking place here.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So that's Article 8 on this draft warrant. Article 9 is I placed an article on the warrant for the renovation and expansion of the North Fire Station in lieu of the discussion and presentation from Gary Persichetti and Gary Ryan, Chief Ryan, earlier this evening. Article 10 are I've expanded the capital improvements by listing the capital improvements. There are 5 items currently listed. One is basically the restoration of the roadway improvements and sidewalk construction that was held off at the spring annual town meeting back in June. The third one is a request for turnout gear for the fire department. And then the latter two were my discussions with the superintendent of schools, Dr. Lang, regarding the Parker Middle School kitchen renovation and also the McCarthy Middle School auditorium renovation. So those are the 5 items under that would be on the warrant for capital consideration.
So Paul, were these under the borrow category before? Or
Yes.
They were, okay, thank
Yes,
you.
and they'll be on borrow going
remember.
forward, including the firehouse. And when we have that tri-board meeting, John Souza and Darlene Lucier and I, the finance director, town accountant, and I will come in and show you the financing plan in terms of why are you doing this now, and then when would the debt service impact the town. I'll just give you a preview. It's very similar to what we experienced with the Warren Poll property in terms of sequencing the debt service so it doesn't create a burden operationally going forward, which is a polite way of saying we have a significant decline in our non-excluded debt service in the upcoming fiscal years. And what we think is we can position these needed capital improvements in a manner that doesn't create an increase in over terms of the schedule that we have right now going forward. So that's Article 10. And then the remainder of the warrant for the next 8 articles are what you saw previously. The 2 petitioned articles by Paul Regazio regarding transferring free cash to reduce the tax levy, the traditional article to transfer free cash to the stabilization fund, then the 2 petition articles from Paul Regazio to transfer from the general stabilization fund to reduce the tax levy, then the zoning bylaw regarding historical preservation and reuse, and then the general bylaw amendment for wildlife feeding, the general bylaw amendment regarding connection to sewer, which Paul Haverty is working on, and so I'll get you that draft out. It would amend the bylaw regarding sewer connections, and then the final one would be funding a request to utilize the sewer capacity fund to examine the options for sewer capacity, similar to basically follows the discussion we had last week with Weston and Sampson in terms of what are the options the town has in terms of creating capacity by our own infrastructure that exists or looking outside the community towards the Lowell plant or otherwise. So that's the warrant, draft warrant that I have for you this evening. There was also an article that came in by petition that was sent out to you and I believe was forwarded to the planning board. And that had to do with the rezoning on, but at the Glenview site, at Princeton Street and Walter Weed Street. I guess that'll be a discussion by the planning board before your next meeting and then coming back to you as to whether you wish to include that article on the warrant. Given that the deadline is passed for the citizen position, which we require it to be put on the warrant, you would have the decision to whether or not to put that on the warrant at this time, or the planning board to if they wish to sponsor it. So that's all I'm aware of at this point in time in terms of the fall town meeting warrant. One thing final in closing on that is the location for the fall annual town meeting, whether it be in the high school gymnasium, such as the spring annual town meeting, the Performing Arts Center, or virtual. I know Ted Luder has been working with the town moderator in discussions. My expectation on the information that I've received thus far in talking to Ted is that he thinks the most viable, and I think I'd share this with him, the most viable opportunity may be to return back to the high school gymnasium in terms of social distancing and spacing, that the Performing Arts Center may not be as suitable for a longer duration type of a town meeting with people going up and down the aisles to speak and so forth in terms of accessibility and so forth. And the problem with all virtual becomes a technology challenge in terms of, yeah, you technically could make that an achievement, but whether the users would be able to effectively utilize that system is up for consideration. So at this point, I expect to bring you a warrant in 2 weeks that would have the high school gymnasium as the location for the fall annual town meeting, unless I hear otherwise, or it becomes a posting change as we've seen what happened with the spring town meeting. So that's where things are with the warrant at this point.
Is there a way we can issue some training so that people can actually make use of their smartphones and other technology to just simply go to town meeting virtually? It's just like, I'm in the middle. I had a COVID test today because my kid got exposed. So we're going to be several weeks into the school year. We're going to have, I'm looking at schools around the country reopening, and some of them are in states that never bothered to do anything about anything. So obviously they're having spikes, but I wonder how practical it is to be having large gatherings. And the problem with the gymnasium was that nobody could hear anything. The acoustics were terrible, and retrofitting a gymnasium to be a place where you can actually speak and hear is very difficult. I think it'd just be easier to issue a piece of paper on how to log into some sort of forum.
What I can do is, if the board would like, is we can have that discussion at your meeting in 2 weeks on September 14th. We can invite Ted Luder and the town moderator, John Curlin, and hopefully come to a decision that evening in terms of what venue or how to do the fall annual town meeting. Again, assuming it goes off as scheduled, given that we don't know what the conditions may be like 8 weeks from now. But I think that's probably the best we can do, Emily, is let's bring everybody together and see if you come to a consensus in terms of what works, because I think that each of the options has challenges is what I'm describing. So I think maybe the best thing to do is put it on the agenda for next meeting prior to your vote in terms of, okay, where are we or how are we having this event, and discuss the various options and again, hopefully come to a consensus in terms of what works.
I want plans. I want detailed plans for each of them. I'm so tired of seat of the pants, no contingency plans, no nothing. I just we can see the three options. We know what they are. We can see the reality on the ground. Mm-hmm. I want contingency plans. I want all three outlined, not, minute by minute, but we should have an outline, and we should figure out some sort of format so that people who need to stay home can participate.
I don't believe we're allowed to do a hybrid model where some can stay home and some can come to the meeting. My understanding is it's one or the other. That you can't sort of have it at the high school gym and then have people voting remotely. My understanding is that it's a venue, and again, but we can have that discussion and bring the stakeholders in terms of what the options are. But I don't know, when we talk about contingency plan, I don't quite know what that means in terms of what that would entail. Other than these are the
So contingency plan, what that entails. You think the gym is the best? I want to know what that looks like. Seating plan, plans for when people can't hear, when the acoustics are bad. I want an outline for how to get instructions out for people who can't use their smartphone and who can't figure out how to dial into a Zoom meeting and who might need help with an app to vote or whatever. Like you need to have that planned out now, and now is the time to start planning that. And I want to see what happens if we hold it in the auditorium and what that looks like. So just outlines of what it looks like. That's what I mean. I don't want, a 5-inch binder filled with hundreds of pages for everything, but I think an outline, and I think an explanation, at least the beginnings of an explanation on how to explain how to dial into a Zoom meeting for people or whatever platform we use would be helpful, along with guidelines. So we don't have random letters for people's names. You have to put first and last name. You're logging in officially.
So,
for an official meeting, you log in with your actual name.
So at the next meeting, Paul, we'll have John Curlin and the powers that be here, and we'll go through it. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have 2 appointments for your confirmation this evening. On the Commission on Disabilities, Katrina Schmidt for a 3-year term ending June 30th, 2023. And for the Recycling Committee, Elizabeth Matson for a 1-year term expiring 6/30/2021.
I make a motion to approve the appointments for the Commission on Disabilities of Katrina Schmidt for the 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2023, and the Recycling Committee for Elizabeth Matson for a 1-year term expiring June 30th, 2021.
Second?
You're on mute, George.
Yep. Can we unmute? There you go, George.
Second.
We have a motion, second, all in favor by roll call. Pat?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
I vote aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Meeting minutes, Virginia?
I make a motion to approve the June 8th, 20 Board of Selectmen meeting minutes and regular session minutes, and the Select Board regular session minutes for June 15th, 2020.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Were there any questions, Pat?
No.
Oh, okay. Motion and a second, all in favor by roll call. Pat?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I vote aye. We'll go to the Select Board member liaison reports and referrals. We'll start off with Pat.
Okay, I have a couple of things. On September 12th, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee is going to do a trail count on the Blue Freeman Rail Trail. So that Saturday, if you see somebody out taking notes, it's not anything sinister. They're just checking to see how many people are walking and biking and skateboarding and using helmets and things like that. Be interesting to see how it compares with previous years, given the situation we're in. So I'm interested in hearing the results. On September 13th, Sunday, the Chelmsford Friends of the Library is going to have a pop-up book sale. And what this consists of is that they put between 5 and 7 books in a paper bag and staple it shut. And on the outside, it tells what type of books are in there, whether they're mysteries or sci-fi or chick lit or children's. a bag of books, adult books, costs $5. A bag of kids' books costs $2. So this will go on that Sunday, September 13th, from 12:30 to 2. And the bags are all stored in the trunks of people's cars that will be parked along the library in the parking lot. They've done this a couple of times before. It's been very successful. It's usually a hot day, so that's why it only lasts for an hour and a half. But they've been able to raise close to $3,000 in two other sessions, and hoping for another good turnout. Part of the reason is to make room, because people are constantly asking when the Friends of the Library are going to start collecting books again for a big book sale. And if we can clear out a bunch of books at this one, there'll be room so that there will be able to be a book drop off sometime in October. And lastly, just a reminder that tomorrow, September 1st, is primary election day, as was mentioned at the beginning of this meeting. So if you haven't voted early or mailed your vote in, be sure to vote tomorrow, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at your usual voting location. That's all I have.
Thank you, Pat. Emily?
Nothing this week.
All right. Thank you, George.
All set. Thank you.
Virginia?
A couple quick things. The Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee is going to be resuming its meetings with the first one on September 8th at 7 p.m. That'll be a virtual meeting and the public is welcome to join. The Age Friendly Committee has developed a Chelmsford action plan, which is currently in its review cycle. And once that's completed, they'll be bringing that forward to Paul and the select board for final review and approval.
Okay, and thank you, Virginia. I don't have anything to add. So we'll go to press questions. I don't see any press in our list here, and I don't see anything in the chat box. I'll give it 1 second. And seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn to executive session, not to return to the public meeting, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, the town manager contract.
Second.
A motion, a second. All in favor? I'll do by roll call. Pat?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I vote aye. I
So
would ask everybody who's to log off. Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
And I'll make you the host, so that way I can leave, okay?
Okay. I'll give everybody a minute to log off.
So you're now the host, Ken. That's showing up. We still have a lot of people on the meeting.
Yep, I see them. I'm just waiting for them to jump off.
Here.